الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهداه إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Dear brothers and sisters, this is lesson number 2 of our commentary on Qwa'id Attasawuf للإمام الفقيه أبي العباس أحمد زروق رحمه الله تبارك وتعالى. And we spoke last time about the definition of Sufism. What is Sufism? And where did this word come from? And what was the history of Sufism? And how did it improve? And how did the latest Sufis go astray? Now today, inshallah, we are going to speak about this book, Kitab Qwa'id Attasawuf. Okay? So we're going to speak about this book. And see what does this book speak about. And this is actually this is very important to know and give an idea about this book. Okay, so this book, although it's a small book, but actually it's a very important book. And the personality of Imam Zarruq shows very clear in it. Therefore, knowing what this book speaks about and knowing what does it deal with is very important. So the word Qwa'id Attasawuf means the rulings of Sufism. The rulings of Sufism. Now, as we know from the biography of Imam Ahmad Zarruq rahimahullah, this great Imam combined between the reality of Islam and the things that we have to practice of Islam, and the inner and the outer of Islam. How can I speak about this? When you speak about fiqh, you're speaking about jurisprudence and the parts that jurisprudence nowadays doesn't speak about, which is the worships. So our Islamic jurisprudence is different from any other jurisprudence because it doesn't deal only with things that have to do with this life. It even deals with things that have to do with worships and what is going to happen in the hereafter. So it deals with the 5 pillars of Islam, and it deals with other things, and it connects between this life and the hereafter. This is the main idea of the Islamic jurisprudence. Not only Islamic jurisprudence, actually even the Mosaic law. It's the same because it's actually from Allah Almighty. So what comes from Allah Almighty is always like that. It's the teaching of prophets and messengers, peace be upon them. And Christianity doesn't have anything like that. Why? You don't have a jurisprudence that has to do with Christianity. Why? Because Christianity, when Paul came and he disconnected it with the Mosaic law, and he convinced Christians that the Old Testament doesn't have anything to do in practicing except few things of it, and the stories that you have in the Bible, but they are concerned by the New Testament. So that's why the Christians have a big Bible, but they don't benefit from anything from those laws that they have in the Old Testament. I remember I had a Christian friend And I told him, what prevents you from converting to Islam? He said, well, actually, I still need to enjoy my life. I still need to drink. I still need to have girlfriends and stuff like that. I told him, but this is in your Bible, actually. The Bible prevents you from doing these bad things. He said, oh, who cares about that? Nobody cares about that. And then I was reading some chapters in the Bible, and I opened the wisdom of Solomon, peace be upon him. It's Proverbs, actually, not the wisdom of Solomon. It's Proverbs. They refer it to Solomon, peace be upon him. So in this chapter, or in this book, you can find lots of advices to be aware from women, from fornicating, from adultery, and all these types of things. I started reading. He said, what are you reading? I said, this is your book. I said, no, nobody cares about that. So therefore, actually, the Christians disconnected themselves from getting the benefits from their Bible or the teachings of their prophets and messengers, peace be upon them. And that was from the innovation of Paul. Now let us go back to our Islamic law. Our Islamic law has two main things. It has the things that you have to practice and you have to show. So this is Islam. And that's why when you see somebody Muslim, you know that he's Muslim. You see that he has an Islamic appearance. You see that he prays when it's time for prayer. He fasts in Ramadan. He goes to Hajj. He does a lot of things that you know from that he's Muslim. The same thing for sisters, for women. You see her wearing her hijab. You see her not doing a lot of things. So she shows that she's Muslim. But there are other things that are inside you. No one knows about them, which is things that the Tasawwuf deals with. But actually, the Tasawwuf deals with these two things. And if you disconnect with these two things, as some fanatic or some stray groups of Sufism did, you go astray. That's it. And that's why nowadays, this type of Sufism is demanded in the West, is demanded from all enemies of Islam. Why? They need a religion that is so close to Christianity that doesn't have anything to do with the real life. So you're religious, but you don't practice. You're religious, but nothing makes you be different from other people. You're religious, but you're like everybody. So you can be in the West, you can be an American guy with an American name, with an American style of life, but you're Sufi. You go to the Mawlid, you go to I don't know what, you sing, you sit down listening to the gospel songs and stuff like that, and then you don't practice Islam anymore. That's it. They are so happy with this type of Sufism, which is actually totally different from the real Islam. So Imam Ahmad Zarruq rahimahullah was a great scholar that connected between these two things, which they call al-Sharia wal-Haqiqa. And I'm going to later on speak about that. What is Sharia? What is Haqiqa? Sharia is what we practice. Al-Haqiqa is what is inside our hearts and what we benefit from the Sharia. So the Sharia and Haqiqa are both like each other. Imam Ahmad Zarruq rahimahullah was born in Fez. He was born in Fez in the year 846 Hijri. So therefore he's a Fasi Imam, but he's originally from a tribe called Al-Baranis. Al-Baranis, one is Barnusi. It's a tribe northern Morocco. North Fez, Taza, all these places, you have this tribe until now. So he's originally from there, and he grew. He was born and he grew in Fez, which was the capital of Morocco, and it's the capital of knowledge in Morocco until now. So therefore, he grew as an orphan because his parents passed away, but his grandmother, took care of him. I might, you might had heard about something like that. And she was a knowledgeable woman, and she took care of him seriously, and she trained him to become a real Muslim. Okay, so therefore, he started studying in the great university of North Africa, or even in the world in those days, which was the University of Al-Qarawiyyin in Fez. So therefore, after gaining knowledge from a lot of great scholars, he decided to travel and meet other scholars of Islam, especially in that era. So therefore, he went to North Africa until he reached Egypt. And in Egypt, he met a lot of scholars, and then he came back, and then he passed away in a city called Misrata in Libya nowadays. So he passed away in a city called Misrata. Nowadays, it's part of Libya. And he reached to Hijaz. He performed his Hajj, and he visited the holy masajid. And then he came back. Then he passed away in Misrata. So therefore, all these places he met lots of scholars in them, and he was influenced a lot by the great scholar who was in Egypt, Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn al-Hajj al-Abdari. Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn al-Hajj al-Abdari, he was a great Maliki Sufi, and he was strict on the old ancient Maliki style, which became rare in the latest centuries. What is the old Maliki style? It's the style that you are stuck to the Quran and the Sunnah, and you are totally against any innovation. Al-Imam Ibn al-Hajj al-Abdari had a very wrote a very interesting book called Al-Madkhal. And he has another book which he made a summary of Sahih al-Bukhari, called it Mukhtasar Sahih al-Bukhari, and he just took a few narrations from it, and he made this small book, and he made a commentary on it. It's called Bahjatul Nufus, which is a very beautiful and interesting commentary, which deals with training yourself, and purifying your heart, and these things. So he was a Sufi Sunni. Ibn al-Hajj al-Abdari, rahimahullah, in this book, he mentioned all types of innovations, bid'ah. And he was very strict in that. And he condemned with harsh words lots of innovations that appeared in his era. So we can say that the old book of condemning innovations in the Maliki school was the book of Al-Bid'ah wa Nahyu Anha by Imam Muhammad ibn Waddah Al-Qurtubi. Muhammad ibn Waddah Al-Qurtubi was an imam, was a muhaddith, and he was in Cordoba and traveled from Cordoba to Iraq to meet Imam Ahmad and meet great imams there. And then he went back to Andalusia, and he wrote this interesting book, which is Al-Bid'ah wa Nahyu Anha, and it's published. It's published several times. Very interesting book. He just narrates in it. He narrates to the Prophet ﷺ, he narrates to great tabi'een, and then he narrates to Imam Malik as well. And he was so strict in this book. So it's called The Innovations and Preventing Them. Preventing Innovations. And then after him, after Al-Imam Ibn Waddah Al-Ishbili rahimahullah, we had a great Imam from Andalusia as well. It's Al-Imam Abu Bakr At-Tartushi rahimahullah, from Tortosa, which is northern Andalusia, northern Spain nowadays. Al-Imam Abu Bakr At-Tartushi Al-Fihri, He was called even Ibn Randaqa. He left Egypt, he left Andalusia to Alexandria, and he remained there in Alexandria, and he was a great Imam, great Maliki Imam, and he wrote this book, which is called Al-Hawadith wal-Bid'ah, the innovations. Al-Hawadith means new things, and Bid'ah means innovations. So Al-Hawadith wal-Bid'ah, he means in Islam, Hawadith wal-Bid'ah in Islam. So therefore, Imam Ibn Imam Abu Bakr al-Tartushi, rahimahullah, Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr al-Fihri, his name is Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr al-Fihri. He was very strict in this book, and he derived from lots of books. But Abu Bakr, Imam Ibn Waddah, al-Tartushi, and Ibn al-Hajj, no one of these gave us the exact definition of innovations, bid'ah. All of them just mentioned. They said this is innovation, this is innovation, this is innovation. Be aware of this, be aware of this, and that's it. Until we had, and subhanAllah, most of these imams were from Andalusia. Or maybe all of them. Until we had a great imam from Granada. That is Al-Imam Abu Ishaq Ibrahim Al-Shatibi, rahimahullah. Originally from Shatiba, North Spain now, North Andalusia. But he was from Granada, and he was a great imam. He wrote this book that shows how to deal with worships, and he mentioned the Maliki view to the whole actions of Islam. What is the Maliki view? And it's not only Maliki, actually, it's Islamic view. But the Malikis, and especially the Imam Shatibi, wrote books about that. In the days of Imam Shatibi, he had lots of problems with his colleagues and even his professors. What is that? Well, in the latest, because he was in the latest 8th Islamic century, and in that century, lots of people started being strict in transactions and saying, well, this is what our scholars say, this is what the fiqh says. And then when they go to the worships, they start following lots of innovations. They say, well, this is what our professors said, this is what our imams said. So Imam Shatibi told them, hey guys, wait a second, guys. You flipped over the situation. You have to be open and easy in transactions, and you have to be strict in worships. So he wrote the first book, which is Al-I'tisam, to show that you have to be strict in dealing with innovations in worships. And this book is a great book, and everybody after him started benefiting from it. And then he wrote another book, which is called Al-Muwafaqat, where he showed that when it comes to dealing with transactions and stuff like that, you go and see what is beneficial. You don't get stuck to what the Imam said, because things change from an era to another, from a country to another, from an environment to another environment. That's what he mentioned a lot of Al-I'tisam and Al-Muwafaqat. Both these are very, very interesting books. So therefore, when Imam Al-Shatibi wrote these two books, lots of people discussed about them and spoke about them, especially Al-I'tisam, because in the era of Imam Shatibi, the Sufis took place a lot, and they saw that this book condemns what they do. But so happy that our Imam Zarruq was influenced a lot with that book, and he used to implement that book. He used to say that what Imam Shatibi says is the truth. Why? because it's even the opinion of his sheikh, his professor. Actually, he didn't meet him, but he was influenced by his books. Al-Imam Abu Abdullah ibn al-Hajj al-Abdari rahimahullah. So therefore, he was influenced by the teachings of Abu Abdullah al-Abdari, which is the same as al-Shatibi. But actually, al-Shatibi came after Abu Abdullah al-Abdari. But the difference between al-I'tisam of Abu Abdullah, Abu Ishaq al-Shatibi rahimahullah, and the previous books is that he gave a definition and he supported all of his opinions by the Quran, the Sunnah, and what the Salaf say and what Imam Malik and his students say. So his book is a typical ancient Maliki teaching. It's a typical ancient Maliki teaching, and I'm insisting on this so that because actually, let me just tell you something very important. I'm going to tell you something important. Nowadays, there are some teachers that are kidnapping, if I can say, the Maliki school. And they are referring to our Maliki school things that are not part of it, and that are considered, according to our great Imams, as innovations, where they stick to the madhab as well, other things, or they omit from the madhab things that they claim it's not Maliki. And it's a way or another something from the new style of the Salafis or I don't know what, but that's not true actually. And that's why when one of the recent scholars wrote, did Imam Shatibi get influenced by Imam Ibn Taymiyyah? Because he came after him. Was he influenced by him? So Sheikh Mashhur Hassan, one of the students of Sheikh Al-Albani rahimahullah, he says yes, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah in his because Sheikh Mashhur published the two books, Al-I'tisam and Al-Muwafaqat, and he said that Imam Shatibi was influenced by Ibn Taymiyyah, and to prove that, he said that he referred to Ibn Taymiyyah in some places in his books. But for me, I believe vice versa. What do you mean by vice versa? I believe that actually Imam Shatibi didn't get influenced by Ibn Taymiyyah. No. He is the representative of the ancient Maliki school. The real Maliki school, as I call it. And Ibn Taymiyyah was influenced by that school. And that's why he wrote several books showing that the Maliki or the Madini school, if I can call it, the real name is the Madini school. It's the real authentic school. He wrote a book called Sihhatu Usuli Ahli al-Madina. That means the origins of the Madini school are authentic. And he supports that, and he says that the Shafi'i and the Hanbali school are only branches of the Madini school. So therefore we have Imam Malik, and then his student is Shafi'i, and his student is Ahmad ibn Hanbal. You see? So from this side, the origins come from Imam Malik, who was the representative or the speaker of the Madini school. Rahimahullah. Okay? So therefore, let us go back to these guys who want to kidnap our Madini school. You find lots of them sticking tickets to the Maliki school which don't have anything to do with it. And they stick to it several innovations which aren't actually from the origin school, the ancient school, the real school. They are maybe from the latest centuries which don't have anything to do with the original school. Okay? So therefore, if I can say, therefore, we have this ancient Maliki school, which was supported by Imam Ahmad Zarruq rahimahullah in several books. In several books. Imam Ahmad Zarruq rahimahullah, when he came to when he started traveling and he met a lot of shuyukh, he discovered that Sufism is destroyed. I mean, it went astray. And that's why he wrote several books trying to purify Sufism from a lots of innovations. From that, his book that is called Uddatu al-Murid al-Sadiq. Uddat al-Murid al-Sadiq, and it's published. It's a very interesting book. Uddatu al-Murid al-Sadiq. And he has other books, actually. And that's why scholars called him in the history Muhtasib al-Fuqaha wal-Sufiyya. That means al-Muhtasib is the one who orders people to follow the right path and prevents them from the wrong path. So he is the Muhtasib of the jurisprudence, the juries, if I can say juries, or the Fuqaha, and the Sufis. Therefore, and he wrote his commentary on Risalat ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani, which he showed his fiqh in it, and he has other books of fiqh as well. So he's not only a Sufi, he's a great imam of fiqh as well. So therefore, many of his students became leaders in North Africa, actually, but not all of them were on the same path that he was on. That's why he was sometimes very strict against some of the students that claim that they are his students. Okay? And that's why Imam Zarruq rahimahullah was against a Sufi that rebelled against the authorities. Is called Amr ibn Sulaiman Sayyaf, and he is from the students of Muhammad ibn Sulaiman al-Jazuli, who went so fanatic in his Sufism. So he had a lot of students, and they started saying that they don't have to practice a lot of obligatory actions of Islam, and they became dangerous. So Imam Zarruq said these guys aren't muridun, these are meridun. Meridun, marada. That means these are Satans, because they are against the actions of Islam, the worships of Islam. He wasn't against Sufism. He says, I'm not against Sufism. I'm against all innovations that change Sufism from its origin. And that's why he wrote his book and his book. So therefore, he wrote this book to show this. He said that you can't worship Allah Almighty. You can't follow the right path and follow a real Sufi path unless you have these conditions. The first one, you have to know who is mankind. What is mankind? The second thing, what are the morals and manners that show the meaning of the life? Number 3, you have to cooperate between mankind and these morals and manners. So therefore, you have to know mankind. What is mankind? What is his body? What is his ideas? And all these types of things. You have to know what is the origin, what is the nature. What is the nature? Mankind is not only an animal. He's not an animal. He's a real creature that God Almighty created, and He created this life for him to benefit from and to use it for hereafter. What are the morals and manners, we get them from the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay? So you have to read Quran and Sunnah, you have to know it, and you have to understand it. And that's following these morals and manners change mankind from being an animal to a human being. What is difference? What is the difference between somebody who, when he feels his his needs, he just practices it near everybody. He feels that he needs sex, he goes practicing sex near everybody in the street. What's the difference between him and a dog or a cat or even a rat? No difference. All of them like each other. But a human being, he has a mind, a sense to deal with all his needs and to control himself. Or else, what's the difference between him and these types of animals? No difference. Okay? Now the third thing, how can you combine between mankind and these morals and manners? This is the job and the work of the imams of Tasawuf. They are the ones who train, who show, who teach, and take care of people until they become in a right path. Okay? So, therefore, when we speak about the one who's doing this is the Shaykh. Shaykh in Tasawwuf means a trainer. He trains you to be a real Muslim. And this is Sufism. Sufism is not dancing, listening to gospel songs, I don't know what, going to pray to shrines and idols and stuff like that. No. That's not Sufism. No, that's totally different from the real Sufism. Sufism is training you to become a real Muslim. That's it. And that's why many people nowadays don't like to have these types of names. We have the name of Islam, submitting to Allah Almighty, and that's enough. But we benefit from these works because, as Ibn Taymiyyah says, rahimahullah, he says that Sufism is a type of knowledge, and it's like other knowledges. It's like you have fuqaha, you have mufassirun, you have muhaddithun, and you have Sufiya, who worked on focusing on your heart, how to purify it, and on mankind, how to train them to be in the high rank. Okay? Not everybody can do that, actually. They need to have a type of, they need methods to have that. And these methods are the different methods of the Sufi schools. Okay? So therefore, this is the idea of this book. Sheikh Zarruq, when he saw people claiming that they're Sufis, but actually they're not practicing Tasawwuf in a proper way, he decided to write a book showing them what are the rulings of Tasawwuf. That's it. Qwa'id. Qwa'id are, how am I going to call it? Qwa'id are Muhammad, are main rulings. Okay? Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. So, yeah. So therefore, he wrote these, and he was very precise in every rule, and he didn't give the definition, he just put the rules there, And others wrote the definitions and wrote books about that. And this book is called, it has a long name actually. Not only Qwa'id Attasawuf, it has a long name, which is called تأسيس القواعد والأصول, founding the rulings and the origins, وتحصيل الفوائد لذوي الوصول, and gaining benefits for the people who want to reach. في أمور أعمها التصوف وما فيه من وجوه التعرف. In lots of aspects, main amongst them is tasawwuf, and what we can find amongst it in things. And you can call it in a summarized way, قواعد التصوف وشواهد التعرف. قواعد, the rulings of tasawwuf, and the signs of knowing. Okay? So this is the real name of this book. It has a long name, and yeah, this is its long name. Now he says in his book, the main idea of this book, he wants to make it as an example of a real Sufi that is accepted. And it combines between the act of the actions of Islam, the pillars of Islam, and the things that you practice, the practices of Islam, and what is in your heart, what hires your rank in the eyes of God Almighty. Okay? So the name shows us the idea of the book, and he says in his book, now sometimes you have several opinions about one thing. You have several definitions about one thing. Yeah, so he says that this is because everybody, when he wants to define it, he says what is in his heart and what he understood from it. And this is why Al-Imam Abu Nu'aym Al-Fadl ibn Dukayn, Al-Imam Abu Nu'aym Al-Asbahani, rahimahullah, when he wrote, this is what he says, when he wrote his Hilyatul Awliya wa Tabaqatul Asfiya, which is a great book, where he mentions biographies of great Imams from the Sahaba until his era. Actually, he mentioned the Sufis, but he mentioned the great Sahaba and Tabi'un as if they are leaders of Sufis. This is what Imam Ibn al-Jawzi condemned. He said this guy, he put Sahaba and Tabi'un amongst the Sufis. That's wrong. But that's what he said. But later on, he summarized the book, and he made it as another book called Sifatul Safwa. So he summarized Hilyatul Awliya in another book. So therefore, he says that in every biography, he says, and tasawwuf is. And there are lots of, it's maybe nearly 8 volumes. Every biography says tasawwuf is so and so, tasawwuf is so and so, and he gives it a lot of definitions. Okay? So that's why he says that the thing, and Arabs say this, the thing when it's very important, it has a lots of names. And that's why you find Arabs give the lion lots of names. They give lots of things lots of names, which are words similar to each other, actually. Okay. So he says again in another rule, he says that to follow, to be honest, there the condition is to do what Allah Almighty likes and according to what He wants. This is a very important. Actually, this is the way to be aware of any innovation. Allah Almighty says in the Holy Quran, فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ No. تبارك الذي بيده الملك وعلى كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. He says, glory, تبارك الذي, to whom the authority in his hand, تبارك الذي بيده الملك, and he can do whatever he wants. وعلى كل شيء قدير. The one that created الذي خلق الموت والحياة, death and life, to examine you who is amongst you the best, who is amongst you doing the best actions. Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad was asked, what are the best actions? He said, yeah, it's the same thing. فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا. He has to make good actions and not associate any partners with Allah Almighty. So, if you want to make something proper, Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad says, أَخْلَصُهُ أَصْوَبُهُ, which means it has to be sincere and it has to be right. And to be sincere is to make it in the sake of Allah, and it has to be on the right path without innovations. Don't create, don't make a new worship from your mind and say, I want to be close to God by doing this, as Christians and Jews did. And they went astray. Okay? So this is very important. Okay? So this is أخلصه أصوبه. This is the same idea that this Imam Zarruq says here. So Zarruq, rahimahullah, was making his best by this book to put the Sufis on the right path so that they don't make any innovation, they don't go astray, and they follow the right path and they get trained. Okay? And he put lots of rulings there. I don't want to read all that because that's part of the lecture. That's part of the lecture, and I'm going to try my best. To I'm going to try my best to make these lectures in 10 sessions and summarize the whole book. I don't want to. If you go deep, it'll take a lot of time, because I told you that one of the scholars nowadays made a commentary on this book in 4 volumes. It's published. His name is Taha Hubayshi. And he made this, he's an Egyptian scholar, and he made his commentary on the book, rahimahullah. The first volume is a study on the whole book and the life of Imam Zarruq, rahimahullah. And later on, he started commenting on the rules one after another. Okay? So therefore, when we follow these rulings, we have a real Sufi who is far from innovations, and actually he become a real Sufi and Salafi. That's it. Because Salafi follows the Salaf, Sufi purifies himself, and that's it. That's what we want. We want a real Muslim. Okay? So, Imam Zarruq rahimahullah was one of the pillars of the Tasawwuf in his era, and the main idea that he used to focus on is this: never innovate in Islam, never put new innovations to ruin Islam. Okay. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. So this is the main idea of this book. And later, inshallah, next lectures, we're going to speak about every rule, and we'll give a definition about it. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. May Allah help us. And I think this is enough for today. And I'll leave it here for your questions and your remarks, inshallah. So if anybody has any question, I'll be happy to answer his questions. Yes. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to